I compiled it all, edited it tight, added timestamps, voiceover, and a little background banjo for dramatic effect. Then I uploaded it to YouTube under the title Maple Glen, declares war on farmer, gets mauled by truth. 27,000 views in 2 days. It hit the local Reddit, then a Facebook group called Suburban HOA Nightmares, and then the county politics page. The comments were gold. Wait, she's mad because guard dogs exist. This guy is my new hero. Can I donate kibble to the cause? Meanwhile, Karen was still trying to play the long game. She filed a civil nuisance claim, said my dogs bark too loud. I responded with a decibel analysis, showing her backyard waterfall feature was louder than my entire kennel. She filed a privacy complaint claiming my drone footage violated HOA members' rights. I countered with a public access map showing every incident occurred from within my property lines or within view of a public road. Then she went nuclear. Karen filed a formal request for emergency zoning review, trying to get my property reclassified as suburban fringe, which would limit my animal count to 3. It was the most aggressive legal move yet. I countered by filing a challenge under the Agricultural Fairness and Land Trust Act of 1996. I attached affidavit from 5 neighboring farmers, a letter from my vet, and an invoice for livestock training services from 3 separate states. Her zoning request was denied within 72 hours. And with that denial came something else, an official note from the county saying that any further unfounded legal action could result in harassment charges. Karen didn't like that, so she escalated the old-fashioned way, passive aggression. HOA volunteers accidentally delivered HOA newsletters to my gate every morning, rubber banded to rocks. Someone removed the screws from my mailbox flag. Then someone replaced my property sign with one that said K9 Assault Command Outpost. I left it up for 2 days because honestly it was kind of badass. But things started to get real when I caught one of her board members slipping something through my barn window one night. A small tin dish filled with raw chicken and what looked suspiciously like blue powder. I reviewed the security footage, then called the sheriff. Turns out Karen's community safety officer was trying to poison working animals. The sheriff took one look at my footage and said, "You want me to press charges or let him sweat first?" I chose sweat. Next morning, I sent the footage to every local news station with the subject line, "What Maple Glen HOA does to dogs." I also mailed it directly to Karen with a sticky note that said, "You done barking yet?" She didn't reply, but the flyer stopped. The yard signs disappeared overnight. The HOA newsletter was suddenly missing 3 pages. And for 2 weeks, not a single drone buzzed my fence line. The war hadn't ended. But the tide had shifted because Karen had brought gossip and paperwork to a property fight. And I had 50 dogs, a bulletproof paper trail, and all the time in the world. 3 weeks of radio silence from Karen should have felt like a victory. The HOA flyers had stopped. The mailbox games had ended. Even Chip can't keep his pants clean. Remington had gone eerily quiet. But if there's one thing I've learned about people like Karen, it's that they never retreat. They reload. So when a matte black Tahoe with tinted windows rolled up to my gate at 7:42 on a foggy Thursday morning, I already knew the battle wasn't over. 2 men stepped out. Not county, not deputies. Their uniforms were just off-brand enough to be suspicious. Somewhere between mall cop and mall ninja badges that said, "Oh, a security enforcement shirts with creases so sharp they looked ironed onto mannequins and sidearms they weren't qualified to carry." One had a clipboard, the other had a DSLR camera. The clipboard guy knocked twice on my gate post, glanced up at the no trespassing sign like it personally offended him, and began reading from a pre-written script loud enough for the trail cams to hear. "We're conducting a wellness and property safety check in accordance with the Maple Glen HOA Charter Section 11C. I was already in the barn watching on the security monitors. I muted the feed and poured my coffee. A wellness check from the HOA. Cute. Translated from Karen speak, that meant we're sending spies to sniff out violations. I sipped slowly and watched as camera guy started snapping photos through the slats in the gate, then lifted the camera over his head and tried to angle it down over the fence. My dogs weren't fans of that, especially not Bear, who didn't appreciate strangers aiming long black objects over the perimeter. With one deep, soul-rattling bark, Bear made his opinion known. 49 other dogs joined him a second later, harmonizing in a canine chorus that could scare the plaque off your teeth. Clipboard guy flinched so hard, he dropped his paperwork. Camera guy tried to hold steady, but ended up stumbling backwards into the Tahoe's bumper. That was when he got too close, leaned over the fence line, and tried to snap a shot of Bear through the slats. Bear lunged, not over, not through, just forward, stopping with military precision inches from the gate. No contact, no bites, but full teeth, full growl, full 140 pounds of, "You picked the wrong damn fence." Camera guy screamed like he'd been shot, tripped, and rolled a good 10-foot back into a puddle. The Tahoe peeled out in reverse so fast it nearly took off its own bumper. The dog stopped barking the moment the truck vanished down the hill. I patted Bear's head, gave him a leftover biscuit from the breakfast batch, and walked back inside. 24 hours later, a manila envelope showed up at my door, certified from a law firm called Halbert Keene. Inside was a notice of civil intent. The HOA was suing me for emotional distress, property intimidation, and maintaining weaponized livestock in a suburban adjacent zone. I reread it twice. Then I laughed so hard I scared the chickens. It was a bold move. A stupid one, too. But what Karen didn't know, and what I'd been waiting to reveal, was that she hadn't just poked a bear. She'd activated a legal kill switch wrapped in federal jurisdiction. See, I wasn't just some backwoods hobby farmer with a pack of dogs and a bone to pick. My dogs weren't mutts. They were certified, bonded, and trained through the National Livestock Guardian Program, a federally partnered nonprofit that worked directly with the USDA and DoD to deploy protection animals on agricultural and sensitive security sites. These dogs had real work histories. Some had patrolled solar fields out west. Others had been field tested on ranches adjacent to border zones, and a handful, like Bear, had passed behavioral assessments used for base perimeter support on domestic military trials. They weren't just dogs. They were registered biological security assets. And because I housed more than 10 under this program, my entire property was registered under a federal rural protection easement trust administered by the NLGP. That meant any unapproved entry attempts, surveillance, or provocations, especially those resulting in injury claims, triggered automatic review from the program's legal department and its affiliated agencies, which in this case included the Office of Rural Compliance, Federal Oversight, and my personal favorite, the USDA Legal Defense Network, whose logo featured a dog paw over a gavel. I didn't even have to call them. Karen's civil filing was enough. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from someone named Mara. "Hey, this is Mara Cargill. Just letting you know our team received the incident report triggered by the Maple Glen HOA's distress claim. Looks like it auto-flagged your trust status. We've opened an investigation into unlawful trespass and forced security incitement. Also, can you please send us the footage from your barn view cams? My team wants to clip that scream for our training reel." I smiled. You see, that's the other thing Karen didn't know. The legal department of the NLGP Trust, the one that now had her name, her filing, her HOA badge number, and the footage of her officers scaling my fence, was run by my cousin Jess, a JAG-trained attorney who once got a whole fracking company shut down for trying to bribe a game warden in Oklahoma. Jess didn't play, and she really didn't like HOA Karens. Within a week, a federal inquiry notice landed in the HOA mailbox citing violations under the Rural Animal Protection Act, improper private surveillance of agricultural trusts, and the always fun catch-all, unauthorized entry on a federally registered working animal easement. They were officially under review, which meant all further legal actions were frozen. All prior filings were subject to audit, and any attempt to interact with my property would now require federal consent, not HOA approval. Karen flipped. She held a closed-door emergency HOA session at the clubhouse. Translation: a panic attack with chairs and muffins. I know because Chip's cousin Steve live-streamed part of it to Facebook. Karen screamed that the board was being targeted by anti-suburban extremists and claimed I was militarizing dogs to intimidate civilian leadership. She wanted the board to file a restraining order against all canine operations within the HOA jurisdiction. One guy in the back asked if that meant banning dogs entirely. She said yes. Half the room walked out. Meanwhile, I kept things quiet on my end. I didn't gloat. I didn't taunt. I didn't need to. The trust team handled the fire. They issued cease and desist letters to every HOA board member listed in the complaint. They subpoenaed HOA surveillance equipment logs. They requested property blueprints and claimed fence line infractions. They even flagged Karen's personal Nest camera footage as potentially unlawful private targeting of federally protected animal work zones. Jess called me 3 days into the review. "You want this shut down or dragged out?" she asked. I told her I wanted poetic goal, she said. "Let's go slow burn then." That week, the HOA newsletter arrived. It was blank. No welcome message, no birthday list, no recipe for Karen's award, losing potato salad. Just a one-line legal disclaimer, due to pending review. Maple Glen HOA board activities are temporarily suspended pending compliance assessment. I framed it. But just to twist the knife a little deeper, I put it next to a photo of Bear in his training vest standing in front of the barn with the trust seal behind him. Caption: "The only authority this land recognizes." Tensions didn't simmer. They evaporated. Chip stopped driving past my fence. The flyers vanished. Not a single drone buzzed the field. It was like they'd all disappeared into a witness protection program for overly ambitious suburbanites. Karen, though, didn't go quietly. She tried to contact the local paper. They ignored her. She tried to frame me on the community Facebook page. The comments dragged her so hard she deleted the post. Finally, she tried to host a support suburbia potluck in the clubhouse, but forgot the board had been legally barred from using it. Only 3 people showed up. One of them was the guy who sold hot tubs. The last I heard, she was petitioning to move to another HOA. But funny thing, once her name landed on the federal HOA watch list, every nearby association passed. Seems word gets around when you try to sue a federally protected livestock trust, especially one run by a cousin who's been waiting her whole career to legally annihilate a Karen. You ever see a house of cards fall in slow motion? It doesn't collapse all at once. First, it leans. A little wobble here, a nervous cough there. Then someone flicks one corner, and the whole structure starts to shiver under its own arrogance. That was the Maple Glen HOA after the federal letters started landing. The first was addressed to Chip Remington, Vice President of Intimidation, and the man whose side part looked like it was drawn with a laser. I saw him the morning after his subpoena arrived, standing in his driveway in plaid golf shorts, holding the envelope like it had personally insulted his mother. 2 days later, he resigned to focus on family. The next was Diane, head of community aesthetics and woman who once fined a family for hanging wind chimes that didn't match their porch rail. Her envelope arrived on a Wednesday. By Friday, the for sale sign was in her yard, and the bird bath she'd spent 4 meetings debating had been smashed into ceramic shards at the base of her mailbox. Then came Bruce, treasurer, self-proclaimed spreadsheet ninja, and the man who'd approved 3,800 for branded HOA board polos. He didn't even resign publicly, just ghosted. The HOA board group chat leaked online, and the last message he sent was, "Don't involve me in this, I told y'all this dog guy was different." That left Karen still clinging to power like it was a float in a flood. Still holding meetings in her backyard under a canopy she'd labeled the Command Pavilion. Still drafting memos on that cursed laptop with the paw print sticker and passive-aggressive fonts. She claimed the subpoenas were witch hunts, that the dogs were bow-poppins, that I was orchestrating a rural coup. She even wrote a blog post titled "Suburbia Under Siege: My Battle Against the K-9 Cartel." For likes, 2 were bots. So when she announced one final leadership camp and for community resilience, nobody was surprised. According to the flyer taped to the community pool fence, still closed for algae, the event would be a peaceful overnight gathering in the disputed perimeter area to show suburban solidarity in the face of intimidation. I let it happen, didn't protest, didn't send a letter, just smiled, leaned back in my chair, and forwarded the flyer to the National Livestock Guardian Trust. I included the coordinates, the timestamp, and a simple note. "Looks like they're coming back. Might want to prep patrol." Jess replied with a thumbs-up emoji and a link to an unlisted YouTube video titled Operation Fluffy Thunder. The night of the campout was clear, crisp, and full of delusion. Karen and a small cadre of diehard loyalists showed up around dusk, 12 of them down from the original 21. They wore matching shirts that read, "Make Maple Glen Civil Again," carried folding chairs, LED lanterns, and at least 3 decorative pillows with inspirational quotes. Someone set up a camp stove. Another tried to install a solar-powered projector screen, but couldn't figure out the settings. At 8:00 p.m., Karen gave a speech. She stood on an overturned milk crate and declared that the HOA would never bow to rural tyranny. She said, I was a dangerous loner with trained attack beasts. She said the board would rise again. 2 people clapped. One was her husband, the other was the hot tub guy. I watched from my porch, sipping tea, trail cams rolling, and right on schedule as the last Esmores were being microwaved over a propane burner. The dogs arrived, not with growls, not with howls, just presents. 50 of them moving like fog with muscle. They emerged from the pasture like shadows with eyes, flanked the perimeter, sat, stared, breathed. You ever hear 50 dogs breathe at once? It's not loud exactly, but it's there. Like wind through pine needles and thunder in the bones. They didn't bark. They didn't lunge. They just watched. Karen tried to ignore it at first. Kept handing out printed copies of the HOA charter like they were sacred texts, but the dogs didn't blink, didn't twitch. One woman asked if they were going to attack. I could hear Karen's voice waver as she replied, "They're just bluffing." At some point around midnight, Bear stood, walked forward to the edge of the light ring, sniffed, snorted, sat, and then one by one, every other dog stood, circled the camp perimeter once, then took a seat, creating a perfect ring of silent staring judgment. That's when the hot tub guy started crying. At 2:47 a.m., Karen made a call. I know because the trail mic picked up her whisper. We may need extraction. No one came because I'd already forwarded the campout plan to local media outlets with the note. Overnight protest happening at disputed agricultural site. Possible conflict. Community interest. I signed it. Concerned citizen. And by dawn, the first news van pulled in. Then a second. Then a drone overhead filming Karen's tear-streaked face as she tried to convince a reporter that the dog army had violated her constitutional rights. Then came the great exodus. One by one, the campers broke, some packed in silence, dragging chairs through dew-soaked grass. One woman left behind an entire cooler and her Fitbit. The hot tub guy sprinted full tilt into the fence, tried to climb it, and fell backward into a puddle. Karen. She locked herself in the porta-potty and refused to come out until the dogs were gone. They weren't. They stayed. Sat in perfect formation while the sun rose over the wreckage of her final stand. The footage aired that night on local news. The headline, HOA Campout ends in chaos after guardian dogs intimidate board members. Viewers voted Bear as most majestic. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived from the county commissioner's office. After multiple documented instances of misconduct, legal overreach, and failure to comply with rural boundary regulations, the Maple Glen Homeowners Association was being officially dissolved. The HOA office was shuttered. The bylaws were nullified. The mailbox flags rose again, this time untampered, and the command pavilion was repossessed by the company Karen still owed $100 for folding chairs. Karen moved where no one knows. Rumor says she tried to join a different HOA in a neighboring town, but her name's on a legal watch list now. A few neighbors say she's running a Facebook group called Survivors of Rural Hostility. 0 members. But the best part was the mural. It started with the local kids, the same ones Karen tried to ban from walking past my fence. They painted Bear, big, bold, regal on the old HOA bulletin board near the clubhouse ruins. Then they added the others. All 50 sitting, standing, guarding with a banner across the top that read, Guardians of Liberty. Someone, no idea who, added a final touch beneath it. Sometimes the barking is the warning. Sometimes it's the verdict. I didn't paint it. I just nodded and added a motion light so everyone could see it at night. These days, my land is quiet again, peaceful, but not silent. The dogs still walk the perimeter, the wind still moves the grass, and sometimes when the sun hits just right, you can hear laughter from the road, the sound of people who finally learned that not every fence is meant to be crossed. Some are meant to be respected, and some are guarded by legends. Remember that persistence and knowing your legal rights can be the strongest weapons in any battle, whether with neighbors or anyone trying to control your life. Always stay calm, be well prepared, and stand up to protect yourself with clear evidence. Also, respecting others' boundaries is key to harmony in any community. But when respect isn't returned, don't hesitate to defend your rights. And remember, you are not alone. Finally, don't forget, sometimes guard dogs don't just protect the land. They symbolize freedom and the right to live safely and with respect. What do you think about this lesson? Have you ever been in a situation like the HOA Karen or dog guardians in real life?